Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, TheLaval, also known as the Power To-Do List, back for you with another video and another deck profile. I've dubbed this Heavy Metal Machina, wanted to share this with you guys for a couple of weeks now, and last week Blazing Vortex finally dropped. We got the new Machina main deck monster, and it's all come together because today in the mail I got the letter I needed, and now I will show this deck to you guys. Starting off, the main deck are two Machina Citadel. Talked about this guy a few times already. Cannot be normal summoned or set, and has to be special summoned by a card effect. On field, target a machine you control and destroy all monsters your opponent controls that have less attack and destroy that machine you targeted. And while it's in the grave, if one or more face-up earth machines you control get destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon them from the grave. Both effects being hard once per turn, but in general this is a great boss monster and one of the three that summons itself off anything of you from your side of the field getting destroyed by card effect. So, continuing that trend is a playset of Desperado Barrel Dragon. I really love this card, just in general. Legacy support is cool. This guy summons himself from your hand if one or more face-up Dark Machine monsters get destroyed by battle or card effect, and he, by quick effect, lets you toss 3 coins, and for each heads you throw, you can destroy a face-up monster on the field. Which is rather neat. Proton Blast helps with setting that up, and if you get 3 heads, which is rather easy when you banish a Proton Blast from the grave, you can also draw a card, which is neat in getting you some more advantage. Also, he's kind of big, 2800, definitely nothing to just scoff at. Yeah, he's cool. I really like this guy, and I'm glad I can run him in another deck. We run one Machina Fortress, mostly mill this off your new guy in Unclass Bar. Summon this back from the grave by discarding a Citadel, and if you have to, a Desperado Barrel Dragon, because you do run a 1-off Twin Barrel to add off this Desperado getting discarded. Also, this thing, if it gets destroyed by battle, or if it gets targeted by a card effect, by a monster effect, you can definitely let your opponent lose some card effects. If it gets destroyed by battle, you destroy 1 card your opponent controls, and if it gets targeted by a monster effect, you can rip 1 card out of your opponent's hand. Rather neat, so he doesn't go down without a fight. And then, as mentioned, the new guy around the block, 2 Machina Unclass Spa. If this card gets added to your hand by any way other than drawing, you can special summon it. And on summon, he will mill a Machina monster. As mentioned, you will most likely mill the Fortress, which then will discard a Citadel to summon itself. But this is just a level 4 that easily puts itself on the board, especially if you add it off redeployment. So it helps your plays there. And also it's a Dark Machine, which synergizes with the Desperado Barrel Dragon you run, which is great. Then we run, as mentioned, the 1 Twin Barrel Dragon. As mentioned, you add this if you discard your Desperado Barrel Dragon for a card effect. And he also on summon lets you toss 2 coins. If you toss 2 heads, you destroy 1 card on the field. Easily set up with Proton Blast in the grave. And yeah, he's just a 1-off Garnet for that reason and for that reason alone. Then we play 3 Machina Possess Storage. On summon, target a Machina in your grave, special summon it in defense, but that Machina can't use its effects this turn. Most used to return a Citadel to the field when you discarded it for your Fortress summon, and have that ready to go on your opponent's turn to nuke their board. Spell and trap removal effect, kinda neat, but this deck mostly cares about nuking front row, so it's helpful, but probably won't come up as much as you want it to. But this guy is definitely great. Then 1 BM4 Blast Spider. I just like to run this for the extra allure fodder, and also for just being able to, when you're going second, normal summoning this, targeting this and an opponent's monster, blow both monsters up, and then summon a Desperado Barrel Dragon or a Mechlord Emperor Wiesel from your hand. So yeah, it's fun for that, and also adds a lure fodder and monster count to this deck, but you can probably do without it. Then I run 2 TheLaval. On normal summon, revive a level 4 lower dark machine monster from your graveyard. In defense, but its effects are negated. Instantly on summon will net you a level 7 synchro monster, which you do run quite a few of. So it is very helpful for that indeed. Then, as mentioned, we run 3 Mech-Lord Emperor Weasel. Just like Desperado Barrel Dragon or Machina Citadel, he summons himself if one of your monsters gets destroyed by a card effect. But he does not have a preference. He just needs a monster to be destroyed by a card effect, which is kind of cool because you can easily put him on the board with the Machina Overdrive effect or by resolving any one of your board wipes. And also, which is kind of cool, he is a spell negate once per turn, which of course helps you set up interruptions further. The synchro stealing ability won't probably come up that much. If you steal a synchro monster with this guy, leave it down in the comments below, because I definitely would want to know that, because it's an hilariously unique ability. But in general, we run 3, even though this guy is searchable with Gigant X, just for extra lure fodder and just to ensure that we see this guy a lot. Because he's kind of cool, to be honest. Just 1 unknown synchron to enable us to go into Ally of Justice Catastor, which is a great card in combination with Heavy Metal Raiders on the board. Going second, putting this on the board, and then normal summoning a level 4 to make Catastor is an easy and simple play, which is rather cool. Then, starting off the spell lineup, I've mentioned this a lot, 3 Allure of Darkness. Draw 2, banish a dark if you don't have a dark to banish, and mill your entire hand. Probably the reason why you run some of the darks here, it's more than you probably need them. You run 2 Unclasper, even though he's searchable. And as mentioned, the Blast Spider and probably the 3 Weasels. So, yeah. Gets you further into your deck, maybe lets you draw into your combo pieces, mainly the Machina redeployment. So it is great for that. And talking about redeployment, we play, of course, 3 of that. Great search card, as mentioned multiple times before. I would be glad and probably ecstatic and have only happiness in my life left if Mothtronics got something that worked as well as this one. Discard a card, add 2 Machina monsters. Discard a Machina card, add 2 Machina cards. Fixes basically every hand you can imagine. This guy is great. You activate this, discard 1, add Unclasper and Citadel. Summon the Unclasper. Unclasper mills a fortress. The fortress engraved will activate its effect, so you discard the Citadel to summon back the fortress. And from there on out, you work with what you have as a normal summon. If you have a Possess Storage, absolutely great. You summon that, grab back the Citadel from grave, overlay into Gear Gigant X, grab a Weasel, and basically you're kind of set up at that point. If you already have a Citadel in hand, you just grab the Unclasper and can add the Possess Storage or another normal summon. In rare cases, you can even add Overdrive with this, but in all of testing, I haven't had this come up once. Then we play 2 Foolish Burial Goods. As mentioned, I've been talking a bit about Proton Blast. This is just an easy way to get Proton Blast in the graveyard, also thins your deck, and in some cases you can even get rid of a Machina Overdrive because the recycling ability is nice. And then going into some one-offs, 1 Foolish Burial. I noticed while putting this deck together that Foolish Burial is a really good card. This deck also makes great usage of the graveyard. As mentioned, Citadel triggers from there. You have Possess Storage and Black Serval, which revive from the graveyard. So you are definitely able to make some plays with this and set you up for some good stuff. And then just 1 Monster Reborn. Simple as that. Grabbing back a monster is always neat, especially if it's one of your bosses. Then 2 Heavy Metal Raiders. I just run 2, haven't found the space for more. Even if I wanted to, I really like this card. Each time one of your Dark Machine monsters, or every Dark Machine monster you control, would be destroyed by battle. It is not destroyed and gains attack equal to the battle damage you took. And if a monster that is a Dark Machine destroys one of your opponent's monster either by battle or its own card effect, you can summon a Dark Machine monster from your hand, which helps you a bit with swarming and also with some minor attack differentials. As mentioned, this of course works great with Catastor because you can just run Catastor into a Dark, gain the attack points, and after that your opponent will probably have an even harder time getting around him. And if you out him with a card effect, most of your boss monsters, as mentioned, Weasel and Desperado Barrel Dragon, trigger off that destruction and are able to put themselves on the board. So yeah, that's cool. Starting off the trap lineup are 3 Torrential Tributes. As mentioned, you don't really care if one of your monsters gets hit by card effect because you mostly have a boss monster in your grave or in your hand that you can put on the board after that. So in most cases, this will hurt your opponent more than it hurts you. And also it's another quick play board wipe that you are very happy to include because this is a rather cool card, even despite its age. And yeah, summoning your monsters getting destroyed is a rather neat concept. Then as mentioned, Machina Overdrive, I currently run 3 as this is another way to trigger your summon effects. Triggers Weasel and Desperado Barrel Dragon in the hand if you destroy an appropriate monster. For Weasel it's anything, Desperado Barrel Dragon a Dark Machine. Triggers your Citadel from the grave if you destroy an Earth Machine. And also is able to fetch a Citadel from the deck if you just destroy any machine, which is the main purpose of Overdrive. The recursion effect is kind of neat, banishing this and being able to shuffle 3 of your banished or in your graveyard dwelling machines into the deck and drawing a card definitely helps you a bit in grind game. I don't want to call this deck good in grind game, but it definitely helps. And yeah, capping off the main deck are just 3 Proton Blasts. You mostly want to mill this for the graveyard effect because the graveyard effect lets you banish this and treat any effect that tosses 2 or more coins as all results being heads, which of course nets you 3 pops with Desperado Barrel Dragon and a draw. And it nets you a pop with the 1 Twin Barrel Dragon you run. Also the on-field effect is kind of neat because depending on the number of heads, you execute an appropriate effect. 1 or more heads, your opponent takes 500 burn damage. 2 or more heads, you destroy a card your opponent controls. And if you get 3 heads, you look at your opponent's hand and rip 1 card out of there. Rather cool, rather neat. This, I didn't want to cut this down because this is such a cool card. It's good discard fodder for your redeployment if you see multiples, so you might always have a way to get it into the graveyard, which is where you in most cases want to have it. But don't be sad if you make 1 stick on the board because the effect is rather cool. As mentioned, Gigant X helps you with your main play. As mentioned, overlay Unclasp or Possess storage into this to grab Weasel from the deck. You can recycle this guy, which is why you can probably do with 1, but I ran 2 just for safety purposes. So yeah, there is that. We run a small train package in the form of a Juggernaut Liebe and a Gustav Max. Make Gustav Max with 2 Citadels, burn your opponent for 2000, and then overlay into Juggernaut Liebe. Detach 1 to have a 6k buddy that runs into everything. I think at that point into 2 monsters if you discard it for Gustav Max effect, but it's great to have that to close out some games. Then a Utopia package, just the vanilla Utopia and a The Lightning for everything that is not outable by board wipe. Things like that exist, and for this is rather helpful. Then 1 Tornado Dragon, as mentioned, you don't really have many ways to get rid of back row, and this is a welcome addition to your extra deck as you do have some rank 4 plays to you available, which is rather neat. Then going into your synchro lineup. Starting off, the synchro lineup is a Dark Strike Fighter. This is probably your main synchro monster if you have a Desperado Barrel Dragon in hand, which is cool because he's a level 7, has a decent body with 2600, and is able to work with your heavy metal raiders for some good effects. Your other level 7 synchro, that's a rather cool option, is Samurai Destroyer. When he battles an opponent's monster, your opponent cannot activate that monster's effect, and if he gets destroyed by an opponent's card effects, you can special summon a machine from your grave. In any way or in any situation you do not have a Desperado Barrel Dragon in your hand, this is probably your next best option after Dark Strike Fighter, because he is rather big. He is also able to float, but careful, he only floats if your opponent destroys him with a card effect, and he does not float when you destroy him with your own, which is kind of sad, but we can't have everything, right? So yeah. Then I run one Power Tool Mecha Dragon. I could probably run the original Power Tool in this deck too, but this is probably the extra deck slot where you guys run a sensible option and not like me, you run Power Tool Dragon. So yeah, he works because he's a Dark Machine, but you can probably include a generic level 8, maybe Stardust Dragon, maybe Scarlet Red Dragon Archfeed, or anything else you find cool. I do run a generic level 7 in Cyber's Quantum Dragon, as mentioned with the Power Tool Mecha Dragon. This is probably another slot where you can include another generic level 7 or 8 synchro, which are your best levels. So yeah, but I think Cyber's Quant is kind of cool. If you have a Link monster, you can monster your opponent controls cannot attack other monsters than him, and he cannot target other monsters you control with card effects. And if he attacks at the beginning of the damage step, you can bounce the opponent's monster and he can attack again in a row. Helps you out some rather tricky boards and some things you cannot nuke. Speaking of nukes, Black Rose Dragon, because this deck didn't have enough board wipes already. We did include the best extra deck board wipe there is. So yeah, just nuking the board doesn't really hurt you as much as your opponent. So go ahead, nuke that board and summon a Desperado Barrel Dragon, a Machina Citadel, or a Weasel of that. Then, as mentioned, one ally of Justice, Catastor. This guy is great in combination with Heavy Metal Raiders because, yeah, he destroys everything that battles him that isn't a dark. Of course, susceptible to card effects and not as good as he was when he initially came out. But if something gets outed by card effect, guess what happens? One of your big boss monsters hits the field, in his case, either a Weasel or a Desperado Barrel Dragon, which is rather neat. Link lineup is rather slim. One Platinum Gadget. Haven't really found many situations where he comes up. He's just here for those situations where you want to get rid of a Weasel and one of your other machines. But the main way you want to get rid of your Weasel anyways is the one Link Karibo you run, because Weasel is a level 1 monster, and why would you get rid of your Weasel when he's such a good card and a spell negate on your opponent's turn? Because Weasel on your turn limits yourself to only attack with him, because he thinks he is so cool. I mean, he is kind of cool, but he doesn't let other monsters attack. And if you want to go for game or for more damage, it's definitely neat to just be able to link off that Weasel into a Link Karibo. And if you're able to add another Weasel of your Gear Gigant X, if he survived the turn, it's definitely neat to have that option. So yeah, this was my Heavy Metal Machina deck. It's rather fun. Just setting up quick play board wipes is fun, and just being able to give zero care about wiping the board with a Torrential is a great feeling, to be honest. And if you want to have some fun with your friends, definitely give this deck a shot. I highly recommend it. So that has been it from me. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of this deck. Maybe let me know what you experimented with the file I included. I will probably have some ratio altering possibilities in the side deck, as I did experiment with Trap Trick, with Reserve Break, with a third black salvo and all that good stuff, which are general things you can definitely include, but then you have to cut down some other parts and probably something that comes down to your personal preference. So yeah, let me know what you think down below in the comments. I will thank you guys very much for watching and hope to see you guys again next time. But until then, goodbye.